to thank everyone for joining. And Phil and Mark, I'm going to let you two both introduce yourselves so that you can highlight what you'd like to highlight as it relates to some of the topics that you'll be talking about today. So Phil, I'll turn it over to you, and then it'll be Mark's turn.
Okay, excellent. So my name is Phil Gardiner. I run our SAFe practice here at Applied Frameworks, and been involved in SAFe since 2013, 2014. Personal passion is LPM and APM, helping companies become both profitable and also having that level of sustainability that allows them to stay profitable, because you need kind of one and the other. This is a topic that I'm very passionate about. APM, Agile Product Management, and how it kind of gets left behind sometimes. Lots of companies out there are really thriving and striving to implement lean portfolio management, and they don't always take the time to understand the value of customer centricity and the role of Agile Product Management. So I reached out to Marc, who was responsible for the latest set of enhancements to the Agile Product Management course that SAFe offers, and here we are today. Marc?
Thanks a lot, Phil, and thanks, Laura. Yeah, my name is Marc Ricks. I'm a SAFe fellow and principal consultant at Scaled Agile. I'm a member of the framework team. I think that just means that I know so much about this framework that I'm useless in any other context or any other place. But I'm a big fan of applied frameworks and lean agile and DevOps practices at scale. My background is more on the technical side of things. So I think that's really my domain. That's what I bring to Scaled Agile, or the engineering, the software development, the DevOps, DevSecOps, that lens. But I also do have a deep passion for customer centricity, design thinking, agile product management, portfolio level things. Before I joined Scaled Agile, I was in the field as an independent consultant, running agile transformations and DevOps transformations. So I had a lot of face time with executives and senior leaders who need to see results. And so the key to unlocking those results for me, whether it was in private practice or employed by another company, was being customer-centric and having the insights from the customers and the markets to be able to bring that into the delivery lifecycle to make sure that we were delivering value at the end of the day. So it's all about value. That comes from customer centricity, whether it's applied to engineering practices, technical practices, or other types of business practices.
Excellent. Thank you, Marc. So I'll go ahead and cover our deck. What we're going to do is there is a Q&A area. And so we're going to kind of take a little more casual approach to today's webinar, in that it's not going to be all, hopefully not just us talking to ourselves, but actually responding to some of the questions that you ask. We do have dedicated time at the end for Q&A, but don't feel like you need to wait. If you ask a question and we're on that topic, as we go through this presentation, we'll do our best to answer in. You might hear Marc or myself chime in, to kind of share stories and kind of make this real for you, as there are lots of companies out there that are implementing SAFe. As you know, it's the most popular framework out there for scaling. And we want to talk to you about some of these challenges that you might encounter. So challenges with customer centricity, just kind of frame things up. Then we'll talk about scaling Agile Product Management, and by extension, scaling customer centricity to your entire enterprise or government agency if you're working in the government sector. And then we'll have our kind of Ask Me Anything Q&A session. So when you think about SAFe, right, there's not like a big, one big icon larger than the rest. Marc mentioned he's on the framework team. And one of the challenges that they have is, how do we indicate on this picture that something is more important than other things? I mean, Marc, anything you care to share on that? I know when we were talking, you had a couple thoughts on that.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot here, right? This is our centerpiece, the core framework. This is the big picture, and it is a big picture. It comes in a few different configurations, so you can expand it, you can collapse it based on your context, but there's a lot of information in here. And when it comes to customer centricity, we kind of look around for it on the big picture. Where do we see the customer? Well, it's right there, right? But we see a lot of other things around it. So from this perspective, how do we know how much to emphasize customer centricity? Does it play an equal part, like everything, equal to everything else? Is it elevated? Is it subordinate? It's hard to tell from this kind of a view, right? So as Phil and I were talking, having our little jam sessions leading up to this webinar, we were thinking, okay, well, let's elevate that perception. Let's clarify things. Even though we see the customer's little bubble there on the framework, it's not necessarily obvious that customer-centric thinking permeates the entire framework. It's really everywhere. So that customer centricity idea permeates everything and connects to everything else in the framework. I think that's the first major point we wanted to make.
Yeah, and if you look at the overview, right, the SAFE overview, it really kind of shows you the 7 core competencies of business agility in these 21 dimensions. And all of these competencies are focused around customer centricity. So by design, it's supposed to be the center, right? We're doing things for our customers. And so some of the challenges we might encounter, right? We think we know who our customers are. We think we understand what our customers want. We think we know our market trends and rhythms. But at the same time, we don't have access to our customers. Oftentimes, SAFE starts out on the IT side of things, and sometimes it's a few leaps away from the external customer. Other times, it's right close to the internal customer, but this idea of connecting with customers, you kind of skip over your internal customers and jump right to the external ones. We invest in our outcomes, not necessarily our customers. And sometimes we find ourselves kind of that tyranny of the urgent, where we're focusing on completing projects, regardless of what we call them, and not really delivering value. So it really becomes, what percentage of this thing have we completed, as opposed to, have we actually checked in with our customers to ensure that they're telling us that we've delivered value, and it's something that moves their customer outcome forward. Any other challenges you'd think to add, Marc?
Not other challenges. I'm sure the audience can think of other challenges in their context, but one thing that I'd like to emphasize here, maybe in 2 parts, and it extends from that first bullet point. We think we know who our customers are. I think there are 2 levels to really understanding your customers. The first level is understanding those customers who pay your bills, right? Who pays for my lunch? Who signs my paychecks? Where's the revenue coming from? Do we understand those customers? And are we delivering the right products and services to them that are desirable, right? Are we delighting our customers, and are they buying? Are we attracting new customers? Are we retaining existing customers so that we can maintain a viable business? I think that's level 1. Level 2 understanding of customers is really understanding the internal people and everybody around you, no matter what you do in the enterprise, realizing that anybody who consumes your work is a customer of you. So we as individuals in the enterprise have customers. We do work, we hand it off, or we send it downstream. We have to think about the completeness and accuracy of the work that we do and how it's consumed downstream, and whether that's enabling flow or blocking flow for anybody else downstream. We do that at an individual level. We have team level customers. So I really wanted to emphasize the point that customers are everywhere. They may not be where you expect them to be in all cases, but think of the people who are around you and who consumes your work. Those are your customers. Customer centricity extends to them as well.
It's interesting. Marc and I share a passion for value stream mapping, not value stream identification to really understand your value stream, but actually, you heard Marc mention percent complete and accurate, right? In the DevOps course, we actually look at measuring our pipeline. I like to look at that in everything. And when we look at if the customer doesn't like it, that impedes flow, because we have to go back and do something else. And so it really helps you optimize flow if you can scale a lot of these practices that are in the Agile Product Management domain. And so when we think about Agile Product Management, this is really the key enabler for bringing customer centricity to the other competencies. So think about this as the key to the customer-centric lock. And when we think about what the role of an Agile product manager is inside SAFE, and this is largely the same out there in the industry when you think about Agile product management, right? Do we end up in a situation where the product manager is focused on meeting the business goals, getting it built, getting it off the shelf, right? Making sure that it can be supported, and dealing with those priority 1 issues and things like that pop up in that once the customers actually have it. And sadly, more customers than I'd like to think have had situations where their customers don't actually have a chance to chime in on what they care about until the final product has been shipped to them. And then they're constantly in this catch-up mode trying to figure that out. And so an Agile product manager has all sorts of things that they can do to really connect with those customers so that you're building something that the customer cares about up front, and you've got that in mind. And so really, it's, if you think about this Scaled Agile's definition of Agile product management here is about products that meet customers' needs, right? And so we can't do these things without customers involved. And so, when we get it off the shelf, are we focused on the big upfront requirements, oftentimes chopped into little features, or getting out the door? Or is it really about that value? And even if so, do we even have the ability to measure that? So first and foremost, Agile product management is a mindset, right? And when you think about this, everything's about the customer. Great product managers have developed personas, which we'll talk about here in just a second, that allow them to connect with their customers on an almost personal level, even though they have these personas that represent entire parts of their market segments. And you get to know them, Sally, Susie, and Harry. Hey, let me tell you, Harry's kind of a, he's kind of a jerk sometimes, right? Sally likes to use her phone, even though because she's approaching retirement, you think she wants to have everything mailed to her. So you learn about these personas over time. And so as a product manager, understanding the customer needs, first and foremost, ask that. And when you bring this Agile product management mindset into everything in the framework, right? Everybody starts thinking about everything's about the customer. So regardless of what role you're in a safe implementation, whether you're on an Agile release train or in a support role or shared services or finance or HR or people management, regardless, you got to keep in mind, everything's about the customer. And, if you look at this, there's lots of places on here where the customer comes into place. Marc and I were brainstorming some things from strategic themes and roadmaps. What are some of the other ones, Marc?
I think very quickly our conversation turned to, well, where does it not apply here?
Yeah. I mean, everything.
It's everything. So customer centricity is everywhere. It needs to shine through in everything. It needs to shine through the vision, the roadmaps. Our milestones need to be keyed to market rhythms and market events. Pick a role, pick a practice, pick a set of practices in the framework. Customer centricity applies at all levels. And Phil, I really like what you said about mindset. Product management is a mindset. Agile product management is a mindset. It should be everywhere. When we think about the product management function or the discipline, usually we localize that to a segment of people called product managers. But here on this slide, if you look at what's inside the 4 quadrants, if you go back to the responsibilities, just really quickly, notice that it may be obvious that product managers do the things in orange. We meet business goals, we get it off the shelf, we get it built, we leverage support. And over on the left, we identify that product management is responsible for doing these things. Well, they can't do it alone. So notice that in the quadrants, we also have call outs to portfolio management, sales, marketing, distribution channels, customer experience, UX, DevX, support, legal, finance, operations. So product management as a function can't deliver on this promise, on this responsibility without the help of everybody in the organization.
It's a great, it's something I think about now that you said that. We've got the little colorful cube in the center, but it doesn't actually tell you what that is. So if you're a new product manager and you're looking at this as, hey, that's what I'm supposed to do, what is that thing in the middle where it says solution? We'll explore that in just a moment. So when we think about our customers, right? Marc mentioned earlier that there's differing degrees of customers. We're not going to dig into that in this particular webinar, but when you think about it, there's understanding, which is what market research gets you. It helps you understand the who and the what, whereas user research is the how and the why. And so there's a lot of information out there, both on the Scaled Agile Framework site and in the fantastic Agile Product Management course. I'll tell you, I mentor a lot of SPCs, both internal at clients that I work with, as well as internal here at Applied Frameworks as the practice lead. And the Agile Product Management course, for me personally, Luke Homan, the guy who first started it when he was working at Scaled Agile, I saw the class and I compared it to a previous, to the product owner, product manager class that was there as part of the one you teach as you're getting ready to launch an art. And for me, it was like, get really, really good at the stuff in the POPM class, and you're driving that Agile release train around the tracks. You get really good at Agile product management, and it is such a paradigm shift. It made me think about a tricycle versus a fighter jet. It is such a different experience. And my personal hypothesis is that you don't see a lot of the Agile product management classes offered because, quite frankly, it's hard to just teach it without understanding and having been part of it. And so, I would encourage you to find somebody who's been a product manager or coach product management and take that Agile product management course from them if you're going to take it. And it is a fantastic experience. And we talk on about things like whole product thinking, designing with empathy, understanding market rhythms, market events, pricing, all sorts of fun stuff in there that you might not be thinking about when you think of product managers, because oftentimes, not often, I can't say often because I don't know, in my own personal experience, it's not uncommon to see product managers for an Agile release train inheriting some requirements from somebody and then working really hard over the next year to try and get into the front of the customer, to try and embrace their customers. And the primary tool they use for that is design thinking. So design thinking basically allows you to address the needs of the user and not just meet your requirements. And so when we think about design thinking, it's a development process and application of specific tools. Remember I mentioned that little diamond cube shaped thing, right? Well, we look at this, ultimately, we want to measure things differently. So with a customer-centric enterprise, we want to find out, is this desirable? Do our customers even want it? Is it feasible, right? Can we deliver this thing? Whether we build it, buy it, both, whatever, right? Is it viable? Can we actually support this thing? And is it sustainable, right? Are we able to really account for the product management lifecycle? Or is this kind of a one and done, right? For example, I remember an NFC case for an iPhone. Well, is that a sustainable product? Because what happens when Apple adds the NFC chip to the iPhone? Let's see, Lisa has got a question here or a comment. I think customer centricity should be with continuous delivery to weave end user feedback into the development of the product. Absolutely. And we'll talk more about the different ways you can do that, because you will ultimately connect with your customers, but you don't want to lose that connection. And that's where that continuous exploration, continuous delivery starts to really, continuous delivery, continuous integration. That's where you're making sure throughout the life cycle of the Agile release train or solution train that you're continuously checking with your customers. What you see on here is this design thinking double diamond. Oftentimes people will skip the first diamond completely. They'll basically design the right solution. And what's the right solution? The one that leadership says is the right solution. So somebody decides we're going to do this business case, this big upfront supposition of what we should get if we do this. And then we go out and we create all the requirements and then we go build it. And we hope that it works. Instead, when you look at design thinking, it's like, let's discover what's happening here, right? Let's use market and user research to identify needs that aren't being met in the market. Let's get that fresh perspective. It drives innovation. It capitalizes on those innovation riptides we have in the framework, and help us switch from how the user should work to how the user does work, right? There's the what you think they're going to do, and there's what they actually do. Don't you want to know the latter? So we've understood that. We've got our research. Now we want to define this. So we're going to use insights from that discover stage to look at building out our new product or evolving our solution, right? To capture those perceived changes. What are those benefits that we believe the customer will get if we do this thing, if we build that thing, right? So now we've got this. So we've discovered, we defined. Now we are going to develop. So we want to do potential solutions. What are all the different things we could do, as opposed to coming up with some big upfront solution? I had there's a wonderful software company based out of San Francisco, and I had the honor of joining their execs for a fiscal year 23 planning event as they started their LPM journey. And about halfway through some collaborative cost of delay prioritization, the senior vice president says, wait a second, what if we looked at these as opportunities and not solutions? And I was like, yes, because think about that, right? we think up front that we know the solution. Well, what if we just know there's an opportunity and we have to figure what that is? And so once we've developed that right solution, now we deliver it, right? And so we produce these artifacts that are sustainable for creating the solution. Design thinking tools, all these things, Gemba walks, personas and empathy maps, journey maps, epics and features, right? If you haven't seen a safe epic, it uses an elevator pitch, which actually, to write a good one, you have to have connected with your customers. And so there's lots of different design thinking tools that we can use. Mark, did you have anything to add to this particular slide, or should I move into a couple of the sample the sample design thinking tools?
Well, I could talk about this slide for days and days and days. Let me just add this. I've become such a fan of this double diamond model and this process, this approach to design thinking and customer centricity and executing on product management functions and the discipline, that it's become daily practice for me. So before my current role on the framework team, I was a product manager within Scaled Agile, and that was my first foray into actual product management, my first title as a product manager. I had a lot of interactions and collaborations with product management groups before, but this was the first time I had to become a product manager. And this model saved my bacon on more than one occasion, and that it did such a good job that I was using this model to win every time. And I found really no substitute for this model. And there is so much power in this model, divergent and convergent thinking. We diverge first, we brainstorm, we canvas the market, we explore, we discover things, and then we narrow it down. We converge on the things that work through testing and scientific methods. And I love Lisa Hammond's response to this, right? Let's understand the problem before we jump into a solution. And Phil, your riff on sometimes the customers don't know what the solution needs to be. They might have an opinion, but let's go discover that. So this is a process for discovery and analysis that is just rigorous enough and just open-ended enough to allow product managers and anybody who needs to go through this process to explore alternatives and converge on the right solutions to end with viable, desirable, feasible, and sustainable solutions. Very, very powerful model and a very simple model.
I would agree. Mark, when I saw Lisa's question in chat, what had me thinking immediately was internal customers, right? So I'm part of an IT organization, and I'm used to just being an order taker, right? The business says, do this, okay, do this, okay, right? That's not product management from the sense that we're looking for here. And sometimes simply talking about these concepts will help. There is a couple of the design thinking tools that we have out there. Empathy map. So we had I tried unsuccessfully at first to get a big defense contractor to take customer centricity into play for one of their business units, and was able to, I showed them the empathy map, and their response was for the VP to have her people fill it out. And I'm just like, that's kind of not the point here. What's interesting is that you might find that, where I'm going with this is that was not the right solution. Coming up with what we think the customer thinks is not research, it's not data driven. However, even if that's the only place you could start, you might get some value out of this. We were able to actually, in this case, we were able to take that empathy map, and I was able to go out and find one lieutenant colonel that would give me a 30-minute session to talk and do a little empathy interview. And what I found was that what the internal group came up with and what the colonel came up with were night and day. And that was enough to get additional conversation. So I don't want you to think that you have to do all of these things all at once. It's big change, but there's a place you can start. And so, once you learn all the great practices that are part of great Agile product management, you can figure out which ones to apply and when. I'm a personal fan of personas. I've had some customers that have really, really deeply invested in understanding who their customers were. I mentioned Sally, Susie, and Harry. I met them back in 2015, the summer of 2015. It's a long time ago, and I can still tell you a little bit, quite a bit about them, because they were so baked into everything. This particular company or personal investment firm was customer obsessed, and it was all about customer centricity. And it went all the way to the portfolio, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. But there's all sorts of things that you can do. One of the things I like to point out an easy place to start is, say you're a product manager working on an Agile release train and you're preparing for your PI planning event. Well, you start brainstorming all your features, right? You've got your features called out and what's the acceptance criteria for those? Well, what if instead you started with the benefit hypothesis? What problem are we trying to solve here, right? What job to be done are we helping with before we come up with all the acceptance criteria and what it should look like? And just that one shift kind of gets you pointed towards that Agile product management mindset. I think somebody mentioned earlier, don't lose that connection. This is something where it's not designed to be a one and done. It's designed to be continuously going on. The framework site shows, close that window already. The framework site shows that you've got these three things happening: exploration, integration, deployment, continuously occurring throughout the framework. And they're happening concurrently. It's not a linear process. You're continuously doing this, a triple infinity loop, if you will, of these things. And so as the market changes, right? So I was a big fan of Netflix when it first came out, DVDs by mail. And I live in McKinney, Texas, and Blockbuster, big headquarters here. I don't know how they got a hold of the customer list, but I got an invite to Blockbuster's DVD by mail. And as a customer, it's like, okay, one price, I get store and mail. That sounds better. I switched. And what's interesting though is that they didn't think about what the customers wanted. They were always playing catch up, in my opinion. And so next thing you know, streaming comes, and Blockbuster was not prepared for that. They didn't evolve with their customers. And I'm making a supposition there. I don't know the inner workings of Blockbuster, but when I think about it, it's like, as a consumer, that Netflix had this, Blockbuster had it, and they added some value, so I switched. Then Netflix came out with this, and Blockbuster did not. And ultimately, I consume my media via streams now. And so if you don't evolve, some not so great stuff can happen. So Marc, anything you'd add on these last couple slides? I know you've got a different perspective than I do oftentimes as the tech guy and as a framework team member.
I think they're very complementary though. Maybe back one slide.
Sure.
Yeah, here, just a quick note on personas. These are hugely, hugely powerful too, because it allows us to switch our thinking from designing for specifications to designing for people. We need that customer centricity baked into our products. Well, how are we going to do that? We need to be thinking about our customers from the very beginning. And developing these personas is not easy. We need to have a deep understanding of our customers. That's customers and markets. That's where the research comes into play that Phil told us about earlier, the market research, the user research, and the empathy interviews, really understanding our customers, what drives them, what makes them tick, what are their pains and gains, what are their wants and needs. Those coalesce into these personas, and then we design our products for those personas. But we're getting rapid feedback from our markets and from our real customers at every time through this process of continuous discovery and continuous exploration. And that feeds the entire cycle, not just development, but early prototyping, designing, even funding and budgeting. We use personas extensively within Scaled Agile at every level of the company, not just for product development, but we use it for marketing and finance and lots of other functions too, because we really need to know who we're designing things for.
And that's something that's been pretty awesome. I get to collaborate with all of the big brains at Scaled Agile from time to time, and I worked with this amazing, say, fellow Dima Dajani on some LPM stuff last year and into early this year. And if you're familiar with Scaled Agile's lean portfolio management model, you've got these three collaborations, and it talks about enterprise executives, business owners, and the enterprise architect. But if you actually get out there into the field, there's different personas that move beyond that. There's individuals who make financing decisions and individuals who support financing decisions. And so it was great to watch as SAI Scaled Agile would actually ask for some of my customers and other SPCT's customers to come in and do customer focus groups and understand who are the personas for LPM, for example. And so, it's absolutely something that will result in you delivering more value sooner that your customers care about. Let's talk a little bit about what customers care about, right? So customers never just buy something like a dishwasher, right? I mean, I think about my refrigerator went out last year. We had to go buy a new refrigerator. I didn't just walk into Home Depot and say, give me a refrigerator, right? I had things in mind, right? So when you think about the products, there's this idea of whole product thinking. And, you know, the customer's gonna buy a specific product from a specific vendor. It's the design of the solution that determines the degree of perceived and actual value from the customer. So how effectively does the solution meets the customer's total needs? And so when we think about whole product thinking, it's so that our products and solutions fulfill those customer needs, right? And so we think about it, generics, that minimal offering. So a dishwasher, it washes dishes, right? A hotel, room with the bed that's not dirty, right? The expected product, this takes it up a level. This is based on competing products. I mentioned that Blockbuster story. Well, right, so Netflix has DVDs by mail, we'll do DVDs by mail, right? This product has this, we'll do that. You know, I've had Android phones and iOS phones over the years, and it's interesting to watch as there'll be an innovation on one platform and gets mimicked on the other. And those things become expectations in the marketplace. Then you have your augmented product. So this is where it goes beyond what's expected and it enables the competitors to differentiate their offerings. Well, you're one of them. How do you differentiate yourself, your solution in the marketplace? So a dishwasher that also has some Internet of Things so that you can actually get a text message when the washing cycle is completed or something like that, if that's your thing, right? Then there's the potential product. And this is where the strategic side of product management comes in, right? What's everything that might be done to attract and keep our customers? This is informed by research. This is where our design thinking tools, such as having customer journey maps and well-defined personas, really helps us understand, hey, what does Harry want next? What does Susie care about, right? And oh, Susie's no longer in her 20s, she's in her early 30s. How has she changed, right? What are those things? And so that longer term strategic planning and the opportunities for those sustainable product advantages in the marketplace all comes from whole product thinking. Anything you'd add to this, Marc? Or we can talk about actually how do we tie some of this back in and become a customer-centric enterprise?
Yeah, let's go there.
Awesome. All right. So I personally believe that Agile product management is the key. If you've seen my talks or you've taken a class from me, or you've seen some of the webinars, I'm a huge fan of LPM. I will tell you that I view LPM as kind of the best way to go from executive support to executive engagement. You get executive engagement, you're in a whole different paradigm with your new way of working. And I've seen how lean portfolio management, if it's done concurrently, right? So we don't wait and do that later, we do it at the same time. And one of the common places that we see that there's a soft spot is really around customer centricity, because oftentimes you're taking a part of your corporation that's used to very rigid and very prescriptive processes, right? And annual cycles, and you're trying to move that towards customer centricity, which requires you to have these smaller build, measure, learn cycles. And so when you're thinking about your corporate strategy, right? SAFe uses this idea of a strategic theme, this objective and key results that tie the portfolio to the larger enterprise or agency strategy. And so when you think about this, look at the objective here: increase customer engagement in our community platform. Well, can you do that without knowing who your customers are, without talking to your customers to understand what your customers want? How can you reduce churn, the people leaving? How can you increase the number of people that are going to be promoting and advocating for your product? How are you going to increase traffic? How are you going to increase profitability if you don't connect with your customers? And so strategic themes in SAFe, one of my favorite artifacts. I love actually using design thinking. So we think we know what our strategy is. Well, let's diverge and come up with that, and then converge and all agree and get alignment on this. And are those customer centric? Marc, anything you'd like to add to this when it comes to portfolio and strategy and customer centricity?
Yeah, emphasizing the point that in SAFe, we use these strategic themes to provide that critical link between strategy and execution. It's important in any context, right? So whether you're using SAFe or another method, you need some way to link strategy and execution. We do that through strategic themes, and then what unfolds from those strategic themes. So very important to get those things right?
Yeah.
So OKRs are a great way to do that. But the bottom line here is that those strategic themes need to connect back to business outcomes that we are striving for based on a customer-centric and market-centric perspective. So sort of the linchpin that holds all of this in balance, right? If we're not developing our digitally enabled solutions in a way that drives compelling business outcomes that are connected to market expectations and user delight, then we've kind of missed the point.
Absolutely. And then one of those design thinking tools, and by the way, we got some stuff going on in chat talking about different ways. I mean, for me, the Stanford D School Bootstrap boot camp was what got me started with design thinking myself. A lot of large corporations even have their own processes. Lots and lots of different ways to do design thinking. And these are just some of the tools that are out there. But regardless of whether or not you use Scaled Agile's model here for a customer journey, what I'd like to point out on this is that oftentimes your operational value stream is very similar to your customer's journey. And for those portfolios that I've worked with that are customer outcome driven or customer centric, you'll see that there's a customer journey that actually follows the operational value streams that the development value streams support inside that portfolio. And so, whether it be learn, buy, get, use, pay, or LP GUPS, learn, buy, use, get, pay, support. Anyway, or decide, learn, choose, apply, purchase, complete, whatever that flow is. Oftentimes you've got a model that you follow here. And these journey maps are fantastic because you can kind of see what they're thinking and feeling at the different stages in your operational value stream flow. And if you think about it, a safe development value stream, right, which is where an agile release train or a large solution train is created, and those are what makes up a safe portfolio. They're going to be building the solutions that enable the customer to take this journey. And so if you've got these journey maps, you can actually, your people who are building the solution, right, continuously exploring and integrating and deploying and releasing, they can see how this ties back to the real customer. There was that financial services firm I mentioned, Sally, Susie, and Harry. It was about a $350 million portfolio, and 70 of the 76 items, there was a lot, and they were projects back then, but we didn't have, hadn't moved them fully to Scaled Agile yet. We're focused on the customer's outcomes. You could take anybody in there, any of these things, and you could ask, there'd be a tag on there, Sally, Susie, and Harry. And if it's something with Harry, if Harry was involved, well, remember I mentioned Harry's not the nicest guy, but he's also 50% of the revenue. And so knowing that this guy's revenue is going to impact a lot of things. Whereas Susie, as a millennial back in the day, Susie, for her, it's about building a relationship where she can do everything for her phone. And the experience was she wanted access to other things besides just this one product or service. She wanted all of her stuff through a single phone app. And so understanding those things really helps you move things forward. Anything to add to this, Marc? Or I'll talk about all the connections into the LPM portfolio flow.
No, that was great.
Okay. So, think about, this is not all of them. This is just me kind of brainstorming a little bit with Marc. Think about all the places where Agile Product Management really impacts LPM. What you're looking at here is a typical portfolio flow for a lean portfolio. And new business opportunities, marketplace changes, problems with existing solutions, those are all things you'll hear from your customers. And do you want to know about them through continuous engagement with your customers because you're a customer-centric organization, or do you want to hear about it on Twitter or someplace where somebody else has done a review or you've got this situation? So that in the funnel, it's a lot of times customer centricity will feed ideas into your funnel, these big ideas that you get, both from getting an MVP to market and validating it or having to pivot, or from ideas that come from your customers through feedback or from Gemba that your Agile release trains and solution trains are doing. When we go into review, understanding the epic, right? Creating this epic hypothesis statement. The first line in a safe epic hypothesis statement is for customers. So you need to know customers who do something, right? So what are the customers trying to do? The solution is something, the how, that provides this value to the customer, right? Unlike what differentiates us in the marketplace, right? From this competitor, our current solution, a non-existent solution, our solution does something better, the why. So just when you start the LPM journey, the first thing you start with is for the customer, for some sort of customer. And if you don't know who your customers are, or you don't have market segmentation, you don't have personas, then you have this generic customer, which could be up to interpretation. When we move into analysis, those of you that have heard me talk about LPM, I say, everybody skips the analysis phase. Please don't skip the analysis phase. And I'll say it again now, right? This is the place where you deeply understand the opportunity. And you've got to connect with customers in this. This is where your product managers, even if you're an Epic owner and you're not part of product management, you're going to have to work with product and solution management so that you can actually understand what solution you're looking for. So you can define an MVP to figure out what's the smallest thing we can do to validate our outcome hypothesis here, that we can get real customer feedback on. So we're making data-driven build, measure, learn decisions throughout this flow. Even sequencing WSJF, weighted shortest job first, a multivariate prioritization model. The numerator for that is cost of delay. The first piece of cost of delay, user or customer value, user business value. So what is our user value? Then you've got time criticality. One of the points under there, will the customer wait for us? And so when we think about even something like weighted shortest job first, if you don't have great Agile product management, you're running in trouble. I'm just going to kind of give this little chime in for this, and then we'll get into Q&A. I want to acknowledge the fact that there's companies out there that have invested in lean UX. This is where you've got a user experience organization, a customer experience organization, and oftentimes they struggle. And it's almost I think about a lot of similarities between lean UX and DevOps or compliance or security, where it's this kind of after the end, it's all done, right? Or it's UX responding to, oh, we need an interface for this, so let's build one, let's design one. Well, no, it's an upfront thing, right? And so with lean UX, they're going to pair with product and solution management so that you can be tightly coupled with your customers and better understand them. So in your enterprise, if you're a product manager or product owner, even solution manager, solution portfolio management, oftentimes there's individuals who are in the UX side of things. Now, it's not emphatically called out in the framework, but if the company I'm working with has a great organization focused on lean UX, we're trying to integrate them into the portfolio. So they're there early on in the portfolio. They're there, just like we have an enterprise architect, we might have an enterprise UX person who's that voice of the customer and thinking about the enablers that might be needed to build out a better experience in the future. And you can do that same model at the solution level and the program level. So Agile Product Management really allows you to connect to your customers. This is the definition that Scaled Agile has on their site about product management course. I can't tell you how much my own life changed, because I did a lot of product management, but I never really associated it with SAFe until I took this APM course, or it was APSM, I think at the time, years ago. And it was game changing for me. It was just like, I've been looking at things, I've been focusing on this backlog as a product manager. I need to be thinking about wider things. I need to tap into all the abilities we have out there. We do have a bunch of classes that we offer here. I just want to call out one thing here, the middle row. Anybody recognize that face there on the middle row? Mark, who is that guy?
That is the Luke Homan.
And he had something to do with the APM course that we were just talking about.
A little bit.
Yeah, so he was one of the creators of that course, and really to me is the person I look to as a mentor in the Agile product management space, as well as lean portfolio management. But we do have these classes. For me, I like to teach lean portfolio management. That August 8th class, the website might have my name on it right now, but Luke's like, hey, I'm available. You take it, dude. With that said, let's do some Q&A. And so what questions do you have?
One option, folks, oh, Eric has his hand up. So if people want to ask their question rather than type it in, use the little hand raise thing and I can unmute you. Eric, I think you should be able to talk if you unmute yourself. Yeah, and I think the way this works, folks, is if you do want to use the voice rather than the chat, you have to raise your hand and then I allow you to talk and then you have to unmute yourself and then you can speak. So Eric, you should be good to go.
Eric might not, I think Eric might be, oh, his question was answered. Okay.
Thanks.
All right, got it. All right, anyone else want to have a question either by voice, raise your hand, or you can type it into chat or the Q&A.
I'm curious, has anybody here taken the APM class? Do you see what I saw in it when I took it? Are you using design thinking and customer centricity at the portfolio level, other places in the framework?
So I have a question for Marc. I've posed this one to Phil in the past, but while folks are typing their questions in or figuring that out, what do you see as maybe the most misunderstood application or potential application of this customer centricity? Like, where do you see either it being forgotten about or not necessarily leveraged properly, or where do you see like the most opportunity that people might not be thinking about?
I think it's equally to the left and to the right of the traditional product management function. So if we think about where product managers are in the organization and their contribution to the value stream, it's usually kind of right there in the middle. If we think of the product lifecycle, in more traditional organizations that are following more linear processes, we have a lot of planning up front, right? Big ideas are happening and executives and leaders are placing big bets on things, or they're arranging big bets. And then a decision is made to go forth and build something. And maybe that thing's defined, maybe it's not, but then that's usually where product management gets engaged, right? They do their thing, and then there's a little bit of a handoff to the technical folks who are entrusted to deliver that solution. If we don't have customer centricity and alignment to the left and to the right of that product management function, I think the wheels fall off the bus. So what we're talking about here is an ecosystem where customer centricity, not necessarily the design thinking tools, but maybe an appreciation for the design thinking process, extends left and right throughout the entire product delivery lifecycle and throughout the entire value stream. Mm-hmm. It's product management who really carries the responsibility for ensuring that we have quality built in and that we have a customer-centric organization. So they're the shepherds and the champions and the enablers of this. But we need to have enough customer centricity and appreciation for the process upstream in LPM. So thank you, Phil, for pointing out the importance of infusing customer-centric design and thinking into the LPM process, because that's where we're placing the biggest bets. Let's place those bets based on what we know best about our customers and our markets. And then similarly to the right of product management, we need to make sure that the technical teams are always kept aware of the latest thinking in regards to where the best features are going to be, where the most value in those solutions is going to be. And this is a never-ending cycle because markets and customers always change.
Mm. So I'm going to follow up with one other question, and then I'll let you guys, well, Phil, kind of reading the chat. I know there's going to be some you're going to want to pull on there as well, but is this these skills, the skill set that product managers need to have in order to go both right and left of where they traditionally play? Where do you learn how to do that? I mean, I know that was the intention of the APM course, but otherwise, it seems to me that it's an awful lot of maybe good mentorship or trial and error. And I don't know how else product managers get good at that other than the trial and error piece. But do you have any advice on people who know they need to go both right and left? Like, what really should people be doing to do that?
Phil, are you taking this one, or is this?
Oh, no, I'm smiling because it's like what popped in my mind is you could say the same thing about LPM. You could say the same thing about SPC. It's like there's a class for it, but I would say this is that take a class that starts your journey. And then, not everybody's in a situation where they can bring in a mentor. I'm blessed to be able to do what I love and love what I do. And a lot of that is mentoring internal change agents, whether it be product managers or SPCs or lean portfolio managers. And I didn't, not everybody has that ability. There are one of the SAFE fellows, Audrey Boyston, she gave a name to what I've been using for years. She calls it an informal learning network. And so there are communities of practice out there. There's meetups, there's Slack communities, there's places you can go to learn. You can pair up with people that you meet on a webinar, right? The idea is that you want somebody out there to bounce the ideas off as you're trying this in the real world. I will say that as I've seen Scaled Agile's product evolve over the years, moving from a single value stream that sold licenses to classes to one that's more about building relationships with customers through this community portal. There's a lot of good stuff on there. Marc, do you know if there's any plans to have an Agile product management practice guide similar to the great lean portfolio management practice guide that's out there?
I don't think it's out of the question. We're seeing a lot of value in those practice guides, so I wouldn't be surprised if one develops.
So I don't want to get behind real quick here on our questions in chat, looking at the time. Isam had a question. Laura, if you could unmute him so he could ask his question, then we have Ava or Ava.
Yeah, I can do that. Okay.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. For somebody like I'm a Scrum Master certified, but I'm not Agile or Agile. What is the recommendation for the courses? Because I've been shopping for courses, and some people will say, "Oh, implement Agile and the SPC." They combine those two together. So, is that a good place to start, or should we be starting somewhere else?
Well, I personally will. My first question that comes to mind is, what's your outcome you're looking for? What are you trying to accomplish with taking a course? What's your goal? Is it to
well,
better?
My goal is to be as good as you guys are with SAFE.
Well, I will tell you.
Eventually be a coach and a mentor and help the people around me, because I do agree the customer is not always right, but the customer is very important.
Well, the customer always knows what they want, though.
Right,
so
right.
They're right or wrong. But no, to answer your question, so you can certainly start your journey with implementing SAFE. That class. So none of the Scaled Agile classes officially have any requirements anymore. And that change happened, many months ago, which can be confusing because you don't know exactly where to start. I will tell you that the implementing class is one that I used to recommend after you've gotten down your journey a little bit. So it used to be one we would recommend when you've seen an Agile release train out there in the wild. You've seen PI planning, you've been through a leading SAFE class, you've had some Agile experience before you go into the implementing class, because the implementing class is an advanced class that's designed to enable you to be able to teach and consult. And so ultimately you'd want that class. Personally, I would say, what do you want to coach? Because there's the facilitation side of things, right? Serving as a Scrum Master, serving as a release train engineer. And so there's a learning path that way with SAFE Scrum Master, SAFE Advanced Scrum Master, and the RTE class. Then there's the other side of that, which is the product side, which is, product owner, product manager, a two-day foundational class, and then going into Agile Product Management, which is kind of gives you the whole shebang when it comes to Agile Product Management. Personally, the SPCs that I mentor inside Applied Frameworks, our recommendation is start with leading SAFE. It's a two-day class. It gives you the basics. It helps you understand the principles that power SAFE. And there's a difference between SAFE that's powered by the principles and SAFE that's not. And this is Phil's opinion here, right? Is that the ones that are sustainable and profitable, they're powered by the principles and practices, because if you get those right, you have something to base decisions on, as opposed to if you skip those and jump right into the process and something doesn't fit, then what do? We'll do it anyway because SAFE says, or we're going to skip that because it's too uncomfortable. And so definitely would figure out which of those two paths you want. Start with leading safe and then take implementing. Marc, is there anything you'd add to that from an official scaled agile capacity?
No, it's a great place to start. Leading safe is always a great place to start, and then branch out from there.
So
you would think leading safe, then maybe product owner, product manager.
Well, it depends on what you want to coach, right? So personally, you know, if we're going to put somebody out there in the field to help a customer launch an agile release train, they're going to typically have gone through leading safe, Scrum Master, product owner, product manager, likely Agile Product Management, and then they become an SPC. They've done all that. They've seen PI planning events before we put them with the customer. And so if your goal is to be a Scrum Master or to be a release train engineer, you may not need the POPM class, although it would benefit, because that allows you to understand the jobs to be done that your customer, in a lot of ways, as an RTE, your customer's product management, right? As a Scrum Master, part of this, your customer is the team and the product owner and the company's customers. So either way, and we can certainly, you know, feel free to, if you want more details, I'll throw my, in the interest of time, I'll just throw my email here, and you can, you know, feel free to reach out. We could continue that conversation. Is it Ava?
Yes.
Yeah, so you had a question. Do you do value stream mapping first or persona and customer journey mapping and OKR first? That's an interesting question. So I'll tell you, one of the things that sadly customers, meaning our clients, will not invest a lot of time in is identifying their value streams. And so with SAFe, there's value stream mapping and there's value stream identification. Definitely recommend early in your SAFe journey, or if you skipped it, go back and do this and go through and do a value stream and art identification workshop. That helps you identify your operational value streams. That helps you identify your development value streams. You need those to ultimately be able to establish flow with the Scaled Agile framework. Now, if you've got personas already, then those will help inform the operational value stream definition. If you don't have the value streams, then those can help you inform your personas and the customer journey. So it's really, you know, one or the other there. As far as OKRs, when I think about OKRs, that's something that's very specific. And in my mind, I reserve that typically for lean portfolio management. And I will tell you that defining strategic themes is oftentimes one of the first steps a customer will take on their LPM journey. It's not the only entry point, but it's one of them. Marc, anything you'd want to add to that? I think Marc got muted.
Yeah, sorry. That's a great question. And I think the simple answer is, well, all of them apply all the time. So maybe it doesn't matter so much which one you do first, but they all kind of work in complement, and they work together in concert, right? So what I always like to do is, you know, never skip value stream mapping, do it when you can. Never skip customer journey mapping, do it when you can. If you can do them close to each other, great, compare the two. Are your journey maps aligning with your value stream? That will tell you whether your customers' expectations are on the journey that they expect is really matching up with your delivery life cycle and the experiences that you're actually delivering.
Absolutely. So I think we're at our time box. I want to say one thing to address some of the chatter in chat. So I'm certified in Scrum at Scale. I've worked with Nexus, a little bit of less, Spotify-ish, and SAFe. And, you know, our company, Applied Frameworks, right? Our CEO is a CST, a certified Scrum trainer from Scrum Alliance, right? So traditionally, we're pretty framework agnostic, but we've landed on SAFe mainly because of the breadth of information, not to mention how many people out there in the market are familiar with it. Now, I will tell you this, one thing that they all have in common is that if you implement any of them as a process, you're going to hit a ceiling pretty quickly. And so we do a lot of second chance SAFe or you know, help us fix our implementation. And it all comes back to the values and the principles, one of which, and the mindset's missing. So those lean agile values and principles, that foundation of lean agile leadership and customer centricity and the agile product management mindset, they're missing. If those are missing from Scrum at Scale, it's not going to give you the value you want. If it's missing from SAFe, you're not going to get the achieve those ultimate outcomes you're looking for. And so I've seen it all work. I like SAFe because it's got everything I need, but you know, I've also done the others. So I'll pause there. Laura, if you want to, I will just kind of just a little last plug here. Any of you that are going to the SAFe Summit this year in Denver in August, both Mark and I are speaking there. I'll be talking about using design thinking within LPM and how that can really help you connect your strategy to execution. And Mark's going to be talking about a complementary topic, extending SAFe beyond IT into the business and stuff. So, all right.
Well, I thank both of you for covering the topic. If anybody has some last minute questions, put them into the chat. We won't close for another 30 seconds or so, but our commitment is to always review all questions and we will cover them in follow-up emails, or depending on the nature of the question, it might be the topic for our next webinar. So,
Absolutely.
Mark, any last things you want to mention that you're about to do in the next few weeks?
Well, it's all about the SAFe Summit right now.
Exactly.
So thanks, Phil, for the plug. Thanks everybody for your time. We really appreciate it. And a quick shout out to Nabil and his last question. Since the existence of the framework, what has been the top outcome? The top outcome has been, this is possible. You can do it. The size of the enterprise, the teams, the architecture, the way they stand out, legacy, anything. It's possible to work through that and turn enterprises into lean enterprises with true business agility. We've seen the results. That's the biggest takeaway.
And I can certainly share some. I'll reply to you. I'll send you in the email in the questions that follow up that Laura will send out. I'll add my 2 cents on that as well, because it's really, like I said, a lot of what we do is helping people. They've tried implementing SAFe and they're doing pretty good, but they want to kind of take it to the next level. And so lots of things that can occur and benefits that you might see. So thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.